All right. Thank you for coming back to another episode of the Reawakened Mom podcast. And I am here with my guest today, Jackie Amstead. How are you, Jackie?
I'm great. How are you, Melissa?
I'm good. I was practicing your last name. Did I mess it up or did I do okay?
No, you nailed that.
Okay. Yay. That's like a win for me today. But I want to introduce you to my audience real quick. So what you wrote to me, and I love because it's like short and sweet. You're a mom, you're a podcaster, and you're also a comedy fiction writer, which I find so interesting because I don't think of myself as funny or a good writer. So I'm glad that you're both of those things.
I bet you're funnier than you think.
Maybe I do make my kids laugh, but only because they're like, that's really not funny, mom. And then like, I laugh at myself. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah. But tell me, I would love to start with that. Like, how did you kind of get into that world? Like as a kid, were you a writer? Like, did you have to like be quiet when you were a kid? So now you like, I want to be funny and write. Like, tell me how you kind of got into being a comedy fiction writer and what is that actually?
What is that? Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't start writing actually comedy. I started writing my first novel, and my only other novel is a young adult thriller mystery, which is takes place in Tokyo and the fashion industry. And I wrote that, and I think this is important, like for any moms that want to write. I wrote that first book and it didn't really go anywhere. And I can see now that the reason is it wasn't my genre. And I think sometimes that is like the best advice is when someone is writing for the first time, especially busy moms, that you might not, first book might not take off, and that's okay, because it could just be not your genre. And that's the first book that came out of me. But I realized after, some more soul searching that I'm like a bit of a jokester, and I should be writing like funny stuff. I mean, it was fun writing the mystery thriller, but I don't think that is like the voice that I have to share with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how did you switch over? So then you were like, I'm kind of funny. So like what have you written that's funny, like a comedy? Is it more like in the younger, like the teenage, like novelty kind of things? Like where, or have you done like a bunch of different ones?
So my story was kind of funny. So, you talk a lot about, motherhood and letting go of your dreams, right? In this show. And after I wrote that first novel, I stopped writing because I had my second daughter at that time. And I got this like just panic of like, oh my God, like I've got two kids now and we're living in an apartment and my day job is not good enough. And I need to stop like writing and, be serious. Right. I think before kids, I definitely, would have just seen myself as the artist, like the flaky, starving artist, and that personality, that identity was like I was totally down with that. But after having two kids, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need like a pension one day. Like this is serious, we need another bedroom. And I live in Vancouver, which is like the most, not affordable housing. So, we're always obsessed in Vancouver with housing. And that was definitely one of my big pushes. It's like, oh my God, we're going to need another bedroom now. Like all of that. And so I stopped writing altogether and was like, that's dumb. That's not serious stuff.
Yeah.
And then what brought me back, we talk about like finding your voice, and the role of comedy was I actually started writing it seems silly now, but Poshmark listings. But I wasn't writing descriptions. You get like 300 words in the caption space. I don't know if you're familiar with Poshmark.
I don't know. I'm like, wait, okay. I feel like I've heard of Poshmark, but it would be silly to be like, what is that? Because I have no idea. And if I don't know, I'm sure there's other people that are going to listen. Like, what's like, I think of it as something to do with clothing. I don't know why.
Totally. It is something to do with clothing. And
okay.
Moms love it, but so if moms are listening and don't know about Poshmark, they should definitely check it out. It's an app, and it's for selling, clothes from your closet.
Okay.
And it's super easy and super fun. And there's like a Poshmark Canada and a Poshmark US. And so you can just sell to other people in the States. And then it's super easy once you've made a sale.
Cool.
And so anyway, it's just a super easy mobile app for selling clothes. And so I started doing that, but my writer voice came out and I started writing these like ridiculous stories in the listings. And people, the other poshers, like really, some of them were like, I just need to know the dimensions of the waist already, you weirdo. But some people really enjoyed them. And I got all this great feedback. And that's actually what got me back to writing. And I realized, the voice that I was using in those listings was pretty like sassy mom.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started writing the novel that I've just finished the first draft, and it's a MOMCOM, which
Oh,
which
maybe
is
it'll be a movie someday.
right? I didn't even know that exists, moms, but we
Yeah,
have a genre
we do.
we do.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Can you tell, are you allowed to like tell us like a little bit about it or not
oh
really?
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
please.
Yeah.
I'm like so curious.
Yeah. It's about a stay-at-home mom who has to pretend to be an ex-con to get her first job in 20 years, 10 years.
Okay.
So it's definitely a little bit tongue in cheek, I think, about things that I experienced when I had to go back to the workforce after taking a few years off.
Okay.
There's just, I think, so I'm kind of poking fun about the workforce and how they often treat moms who have taken time off, and maybe it's you've taken a decade off, or maybe you've just taken 6 months off. But I wanted a way to sort of poke fun at that experience, while taking it to that extreme level that comedy is so great for. So that's like my hidden agenda, but
Yeah.
it's just pretty fun too. So
Yeah.
definitely, she is also a thrift addict, which definitely draws from my own experience with
Yeah.
all of those things.
Right. That's so fun. When will that be expected to come out? Sometime in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the hope. I mean, I'm honestly at the point, getting close now to deciding, do I send it out to publishers, traditional publishers, or do I self-publish it? And that's, a lot about, you mentioned the podcast, like that's a big decision point for the moms that I talk to on that show, is like, okay, when one part is just getting the book out, and then the second part is what do you do with it next? So that's where I'm at. I'm not entirely sure which path I want to go down.
Yeah. So when you talk to a lot of moms, you talked about a little bit like just finding our voice. Like, is that what you really encourage moms to do, is kind of like find their voice in writing? Is that like kind of the gist of it as well?
Yeah, I think it's a lot. When I started the podcast was to, just show moms that you're not alone if you want to pursue writing, and while you're momming, like, that is normal and you can do it. But I think, some of the bigger themes that come out, because I talk to like self-published authors, traditionally published authors, is like, it's almost a pivot, I would say. Like, a lot of the women I talk to, almost all, well, maybe 90%, like the writing for them is like this pivot that they're doing after, usually like in middle age, like around 40s. The pandemic has been like a real big impetus, and they have just gotten to the point in their life where they realize, like, they may have had a extensive career in like healthcare, or maybe they're stay-at-home moms, or maybe they were someone else,
Yeah.
and they've come to this point in their life and they just decided, you know what, I want to be an author. And it's incredible, Melissa. Like, I just had no idea what moms have achieved. I mean, there's
Yeah.
moms that in like 2 years, they went from, a totally different industry, like into, making six figures,
Mhm.
writing romance in between nap times. And
So
so
you're
it's
totally encouraging moms to do it and go for it and
totally,
go back to their passion, and that
yes,
they never thought it was something they wanted to do. Maybe they journal and they like
yeah,
doing that, or maybe they have written something like and just kind of put it aside because, motherhood is busy and it's filled with all these other things. And, like
totally,
you said, like that's part of like what I preach here is like coming back to yourself and
yeah,
reawakening like yourself as a person and what lights you up, and remembering that person, that little girl, and who she is, because the world needs more of that. The world needs more of us women sharing our voice, whether that is through podcasting, whether it's through TV shows, whether it's through writing books and sharing stories, because we need to see that other women can do that. So can I.
yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I think the gift of the middle age is that often, like sometimes, many of the guests, they didn't even realize they wanted to, like, it wasn't just motherhood. I know that can be a barrier, right? Of course, for writing, but even before that, they may have chosen a practical path because of what, society told them to do at that time. So they went into business or they went into health, and they get to this point where they realized, and I think part of motherhood is that gift too. It definitely, being a mom takes a lot of time, so that can make it more challenging. But I think there is an awakening that happens, that when you do have kids and you realize, like, wait a second, like I always wanted to do creative writing, but I went into this other profession because it's more practical. People
Mhm.
told me that. And so that's another big piece that comes out, is that women finally taking the time, giving themselves the space to write these stories that they've been inside them this whole time.
Yeah. So do you have tips for like if there is a mom that's listening and she's like, oh my gosh, like I do want to write a book, but like I'm so busy, or I have the kids, or I do have another job. Like, how will I find the time?
Yeah.
The never, no one can ever answer this question, but it's like, but how did you do it? Like, how did you do it for your book and continue to do it and help other people do it? Like, I would love to
Yeah.
know that.
I think there's always a way, and I totally get it, because I told myself that for 5 years after my daughter was born, that, you know what, I'm just never gonna have the time. I can't write late at night. And so I tried and it didn't work. I just wanted to go to sleep. So I think one thing is just remembering, there's seasons of life. And so I didn't start writing back in earnest until my daughter was about 5. Right. And so that is, it may just be that you can't find the time and energy right now, but don't let that be a barrier that you keep reinforcing over and over, because eventually actually you will have more capacity. And so you
Mhm.
need to keep looking for that opportunity. I think number 2 is that I honestly, I talk to moms with newborns that also actually do find the time. And I'm not saying that's for everyone, because
Yeah.
all babies are different, and some are just awesome at sleeping and some are not. But just like push yourself a little bit. And that's what I didn't do. I thought, because I can't write at night, I'm not going to be able to write. And I have a full-time day job. And I realized just last year that, well, I could try in the morning. And so, yes, I get up really early now, but I can do it, and I can function, and I just keep showing up. And some days it's not always easy, because there's a little part of me that's like, what if I get up that early and nothing comes? And that's, I think, a real barrier, which is actually probably what's behind some of that, is you're scared that you're gonna go all in and then nothing's gonna happen. Well, you just have to trust in the process, because I am still scared. I wrote 30 chapters for this book, and each time I would be terrified that I wouldn't know what the next chapter would be. But
Yeah.
something, it always came, and it all worked out. So I say, give yourself that permission. And then one thing, a really cool strategy that I've heard for moms that are on limited time, but maybe running around, is writing by dictation. And this is like, I think, a really good cheat, because then you can access time when you're driving to write, if you're, or waiting in the doctor's office for your kid's appointment, or whatever.
Or your kids are like at travel baseball, like mine. And I'm like, I don't need to
Yeah,
watch this practice. So I sit in the car and edit my podcasts.
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Make use of the time that you do have.
Exactly. And I just think there is always some time. And I'd question, because from my own experience, it wasn't that I didn't have time during those few years where I stopped writing. It was that I was telling myself that there was no point in doing this, because I had nothing else to share to the world, and
Yeah.
writing and getting published was just too hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could
Mhm.
totally, I mean, I feel that. So I am in a compilation book. And
Oh,
so
congratulations.
thank you. When my friend asked me like, oh my gosh, I would love to have you in the book and write a chapter, I immediately had that thought in my head, like, I don't have a story, like, I don't have trauma, like, I don't have something that people want to hear. That was like my immediate thought. And then I was like, wait a second. Like, yes, you do. Like, everyone has a story. Like, everyone listening has a story of some sort. And it might not be your story or my story, but it's their story. And some piece of that someone will be able to resonate with. So I wrote the chapter. And as soon as I started writing, it was interesting, just like how you said, like when you sat down and were writing the next chapter, like it would just kind of come to you. Like, I just started writing, and then I was like, I did no editing. I just was like, let me just write and just see what comes out. And like, it's just magical to be able to put your words in your story, whether it's your story or you're making up a story and you're writing fiction or something like that. It's just cool, and it will resonate with someone in some way. And I think it's really cool. So I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Sometime at the end of the year. So November, December. So yeah, but it's exciting. But I do think that, women need to it comes with that self-love too, I think, and being like, okay, well, I don't have, anything to share. What do I have to share? Who am I? And it's like changing those belief systems almost in yourself, and maybe what society has said, or the stories that you have grown up with for so long, but to be like, yes, I can do this.
Yeah. And I think there's like motherhood and what women face, and the publishing industry itself can be really negative, and you can feel like really disheartened. So I think it's just really important to find a supportive writing community, especially one, for women and for moms, because I think that can be a real barrier, is thinking that it's too hard. I'm, like you said, I'm an imposter. It's not going to happen for me. It can happen for you. And you just need to make sure you surround yourself when you start writing with the people that will lift you up. And because there's a lot of negative messaging. I know for myself, that's what stopped me too, as well, is like just letting that get into my head and think, oh, this is impossible. I'm just a dreamer. I need to, pay for baby food now. So
yeah, right. Because I mean, that could be something that other people think too. Well, I'm going to write this, but I'm not going to make any money doing it. So what's the point? Or how can I make any money doing this? And I need to provide for my family or my children or whatever your situation is. So that could be another like limiting belief, that, having that thinking, well, I'm not going to make any money. It's not going to be a bestseller, or comparing yourself to other people and, thinking you're not good enough and things like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, when you were talking about when you sit down to write, when you're writing your story, like it just came, I guess it's different than maybe writing out like a chapter book where you have like a theme to each one, like you're writing a story. So maybe the beginning and the end, or maybe you don't, maybe you just start writing and then it kind of happens. But I know it's different for everybody, and everybody has different methods and things like that. But like, do you have suggestions on if somebody just wants to start, like how to do it? Like, do you like put some bullet points on some ideas running through your head, like maybe write out a bunch of things and then cross things off? Or, do you have any, or just sit down and write and see what comes out, and it might change a million times? Do you have any suggestions for moms on maybe even how to get started?
Well, I think, you know, the perennial advice for writers is always just write. I think just giving yourself permission to see what comes out, but also a really great resource is Save the Cat. Save the Cat writes a novel. And for me, that was a really powerful tool for understanding like the roadmap. So, you know, in writing, we say there's pantsers or planners. And
I
I,
didn't know.
yeah, so pantsers just start writing and then they follow where the writing takes them. But a planner would, like you said, put the bullet points down for maybe for each chapter. And I would say either works, you know, the pantsers is just like a little bit more intuitive, and you know the planner obviously a little more predictive. But
Yeah.
I would also suggest, regardless of which of those you identify with, is this book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, because it really identifies like the roadmap of your book. So it breaks it down into very clear, easy to follow instructions, guidelines, so that you know what, you know, they call them beats. What are the beats of the novel that you need to hit in order to get to the end? Because, you know, novels obviously range dramatically, but they all have an underlying blueprint.
Mhm.
And if you can see it, put it, you know, read the book, read the chapters, then you can, it's just very clear. I think anyone can write a novel, really. And this book for me really took away some of that mystique and mystery around novel writing.
Yeah.
But definitely, so I would say like definitely, you know, just give yourself time to write and don't worry about the book. But at some point, start reading this book, because it will help guide you. And so, you know, when we talk about time, I think for myself, my first book took me a lot of time. Took me
How
like,
long did it take you?
I think it took me like 10 years to write it, because
10 years?
yeah, like I just
Yeah.
didn't know what I was doing. You know, I took workshops but I just really didn't write it in a very systematic way. And that was part of what was so disheartening, because I realized, or I thought, oh my God, it took me 10 years to write a novel. Like, I'm not good at this. But no, I
Yeah.
just didn't know what I was doing. So you can make the most out of limited time by, you know, reading this book, Save the Cat, because then you can know exactly where you're going, and you won't, you know, waste as much of that precious time that you have.
Mhm. No, that's a great suggestion. I'd never heard that before. Like the book, obviously, but then what you were saying about, you know, being the planner or being like more intuitive about how you're writing, because it's not, nothing in life is one size fits all, but it's writing. There's so many different techniques, and you write in the morning, or you write at night, or you have a plan, or you don't have a plan, or you feel it, or you don't, you know, it's just like, oh, this doesn't feel right, or someone's telling you what you should be writing, and you're like, yeah, but that doesn't feel good. So there's no one size fits all. If you are interested in writing, then you just do it and you feel your way through it and what feels good to you. And you wrote a book, the first one, you're like, yeah, but that's not my genre. So you have to figure it out, and you figure it out by doing it versus just sitting and thinking and thinking and thinking and wanting, which we all do. But you know, we know that you can write, like you can write no matter who you are, if you're a mom, not a mom, but you know, if you're a mom, especially, like, get your voice out there, ladies.
That's right. Get your voice out there.
Yeah. I love this. Do you have anything that like you haven't shared, or like a golden nugget or a tip that you're like, oh, this is like really on my heart to like share with the mamas that are listening right now, no matter what it is, whether it's about writing or something else?
I think just probably the biggest advice is just to lean into that discomfort and that fear, and to understand it more. Just from my own experience, that was what held me back for so long with writing and podcasting, is, you know, listening to those voices. Oh, you know, why are you starting that? Like, there's lots of podcasts out there. Or why are you starting a book? Like, that is a waste of time. And your first one didn't make you any money. And it took me a long time to let go of those thoughts and just like step forward anyway. And I'm still on the journey, you know, I'm still
Yeah.
figuring it out. But I can say, you know, it's been a year almost a year since I started on this and, started to like wake up, and I feel just like so much happier. So, no matter where this journey takes me, I know that it's been worth it. And that's because I finally started listening to that voice that was, saying, this isn't quite it. You're
Yeah.
not quite showing up in your life, and you need to do something about it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's such great advice. How can people find you? Or if you have a community, like you said, like for moms who want to write or anything like that, like how can people like find more information about you and what you've got going on?
Well, there's the podcast if they are interested in writing. It's called These Moms Write. And that is just awesome inspirational stories about moms who, like I said, many, starting writing in their 40s and have done amazing things. And we also have the Facebook group for These Moms Write. And on Instagram as well, Jackie Amston.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I can't wait to listen to more. And I know we have a mutual friend that you just interviewed who I absolutely love and adore. So I'm sure that the podcast episodes are just great and filled with so much information. Are they all you, or are they all with interviews?
They've mainly been interviews. Yeah, I've just done one solo, but I was listening to one of yours this morning that inspired me. So I think that's maybe something I should try out more.
Awesome. Oh, thanks. And that's what we are all here for, is to inspire each other, and be like, oh, wait, she can do it. So can I. Versus like, oh, well, somebody else has already done it. I can't do it. But it's like living in that abundant world of like, we can all do it. It's just putting it out there and doing it scary and trying. And sometimes you fall and then you just get back up and readjust. So fix your feathered pen, be like, oh, maybe I need more ink.
That's right.
I always love to end with this question because we as women do not celebrate ourselves enough. So I would love to know, what is something that you love about yourself right now?
Something I love about myself.
Yeah.
I think just perseverance. Again, I listened to your show, and you were celebrating getting well past pod fade. And, I'm also feeling that too. It's a fun journey, but it does take a lot of persistence. And I think I'm proud of myself for continuing, through that past pod fade.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah, it is. And it's just, you started and you have a great message to share. And I'm sure there's so many moms that are listening to your podcast too, that are like, wow, like this is inspiring and amazing. And, if Jackie can do it, then so can I, like drop some of the excuses that I've been telling myself for so long and just go for it and see what happens. Congratulations.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here today. And I will put your information in the show notes so the mamas that are listening can easily find you. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing all your wisdom.
Oh, it was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.